There is less and less doubt that Xi Jinping-led China is prepared to deal militarily with the range of challenges it faces. That Beijing views war as one of the main tools of its foreign policy is clear from a government report presented Tuesday by Premier Li Keqiang at the opening session of the National People's Congress. In his speech, Li announced a 7% increase in the country's defense spending, which in total means the military budget has more than doubled during President Xi Jinping's 11 years in office. Notably, in terms of its pace, the increase is well above the government's forecast for the country's economic growth for this year. At the same time as announcing the increase in the military budget, the premier opaquely hinted at the main culprit behind the increase in military spending, effectively condemning it to inevitable war. In his report, Li Keqiang omitted the phrase peaceful reunification with Taiwan, which he had called for last year, replacing it with the phrase that Beijing will be firm in advancing the cause of China's reunification. He also once again reminded that China will resolutely oppose Taiwan's independence. China is building up its military power despite the struggling economy. China is showing that in the next decade it wants to build up its military to the point where it is ready to win a war, if it has no choice but to wage it, Li Keqiang said. The continuous increase in military spending confirms Xi Jinping's chosen course of militarization and modernization of the country's armed forces. At this stage, the Chinese leader is still not convinced of the PLA's exceptional combat capability. In this regard, huge political and financial efforts are aimed not only at rearmament, but also at eradicating corruption and disloyalty in the ranks of the army's top commanders. Such actions are taken when a state leader has a clear idea of when, how, and against whom military force will be used. Xi's imperial ambitions are fueled by a sense of growing weakness in the Western world, the only global player opposing Chinese expansion. Recent geopolitical events show that the West has failed to consolidate itself in the face of the imaginary and real threats looming over the world today. And this has greatly emboldened Xi Jinping, who partly fancies himself the new Chinese emperor. The only obstacle that could prevent his ambitions from being realized is the growing economic crisis that the country has come to during Xi's years in power. The crisis is so deep that it cannot be solved by cosmetic measures without changing the economic and political model. Obviously, the new Chinese emperor will not go for the latter under any circumstances. This means that China's economic position in the world will continue to weaken, which is well understood in Beijing. By cutting off access to the most advanced technologies and reducing global imports of Chinese goods, China will leave the world's top 3 economies in the foreseeable future. In this situation, it is likely that the Chinese leadership is considering turning the table in this global game by asserting its dominance through brute force. Everything Li Keqiang said today speaks in favor of this option.